Good evening, everyone. Today I will be reviewing Destination Cambodia, Adventures in the Kingdom by Walter Mason. Okay, so this was a jovial good book about Walter's time within Cambodia. He met a number of friends along the way. He really kind of it wasn't a very deep book. I'm gonna get pizza while I do this. It wasn't a very deep book, but I really kind of I felt maybe got to the, if not the backpacking core, maybe sort of the core of the community in a way that maybe most Westerners couldn't get to. I feel like he really talked about his friends quite a bit, in a way that like somebody that was just a traveler that traveled with other Westerners wouldn't understand. What else about the book? I guess it wasn't really sort of like a destination A to destination B type travel book. So it's kind of hard for me to do a review that way. He did go to a couple places, primarily being Battambang, Siem Reap, Battambang being the second biggest city, Siem Reap being the jumping off point for Angkor Wat. He also visited a city or a small town that I am having trouble remembering off the top of my head. But he visited there during the Cambodian New Year and kind of got to see all the celebration with that. A lot of what the book really is about kind of the crazy adventures that his friend, or not his friend, but his multitude of friends get him involved with. He really let's see, he goes to like a temple and is supposed to be like kind of, I think, well, maybe like a mother dies and he is like one of the guests of honor and has to sit through like 8 or 9 hours of being involved with that. He goes to the Cambodian New Year, as I earlier said. I would appreciate maybe have me eat a slice of pizza when I do this because he's a little bit larger fellow, as it mentions throughout the book. Where else does he go? Well, oh, he's the keynote speaker of a sort of large convention of monks, he's specifically supposed to be speaking on Cambodian Buddhism or Southeast Asian Buddhism, really. But doesn't know that he's a keynote speaker up until about 4 minutes before he's supposed to go on stage. And then they just push him up there and tell him to give a 20 to 30 minute keynote address. Of course, it's really not about organizing ahead of time as it is just sort of, the Cambodians giving you leeway for being a good speaker because you shine a flashlight on their country. You're there to write a book about it, so they're going to treat you like a celebrity. We got hand palm readings. He took a riverboat cruise. It's primarily jumping off point was Phnom Penh, which is where the Siem Reap, Tonle Sap, Siem Reap's the town. Tonle Sap River, which leads to the Tonle Sap Lake, meets the Mekong. He said I like to do on that cruise. He would go into like coffee shops. He specifically mentioned sort of the difference between kind of yuppie Western styled coffee shops and sort of not to romanticize it, but kind of the more traditional coffee shops. And so he specifically mentioned one that was run by a Cambodia or a Vietnamese person. He knows Vietnamese. He doesn't know Khmer language that he felt very comfortable in. It was actually where he met Kamel, I believe. Kamel. Yeah. Who turned out to be one of his great friends throughout the book. What else? Um, he of course visits the. I don't remember the specific name of the place, but it was the torture chamber for all of the uh, prisoners of war during the Khmer Rouge era. One thing he kind of mentions throughout the book is how the Khmer Rouge era really informs, but does not necessarily totally dictate the lives of everyday people in Cambodia. Certainly, they have memories of it, and certainly in certain circumstances they act accordingly. But there's also a Cambodia that exists independent of that, which is what really most Westerners don't want to believe. Not that the Khmer Rouge isn't over, but that there is a, like a young class of people that or maybe children when the Khmer Rouge were in power, or maybe weren't even born yet, that are starting to create the new Cambodia. A good piece of pizzle. Well, well, I guess the thing that, he kind of goes to a lot of monasteries and stuff. I'll mention that little secret in a little bit. He goes to a lot of monasteries, meets with the monks. Something interesting that was mentioned in the book is that in Cambodia, becoming a monk is not really seen as a permanent obligation, or at least even the potential for a permanent obligation. Right? In other Buddhist cultures, people will often go to temple temporarily, for a few months, 6 months to meet an obligation to their religious devotion. But there's always the sort of in the background possibility that it could lead to something further, and people could, Buddhist monks that go to temple temporarily could change their mind and dedicate their lives permanently to the Buddhist lifestyle, Buddhist lifestyle, what am I saying? To become a monk permanently for the rest of their lives. But really in Cambodia, nobody thinks this way, that it's pretty much seen as a temporary refuge and oftentimes a stepping stone to greater career choices. It's something you do to gain credibility among your employers. You can often sort of parlay some of the educational opportunities provided by Buddhist monasteries, which cost-wise might not be available to the said Buddhist monk. In other circumstances, like the only way that they could get more education would be to go to one of these monasteries. Now, interestingly enough, the only people that stay permanently, or don't stay permanently, but sort of are trapped permanently at these monasteries. I'm going to turn this light on. At these monasteries tend to be homeless people, or sort of men on the I don't want to say men on the grift, but sort of like, the underemployed of Phnom Penh. And really, a lot of these people are very resourceful. He mentioned a friend that was constantly networking with people in tuk-tuks, businesses, and just had like 6 different cell phones, all of them on specific types of plans where he could call people at certain times. He had this big VIP list of people that probably would not be considered VIPs in the West, but had some influence, relatively, had some influence in Cambodia. And so he would call them to ask for favors occasionally, but obviously not overstep his bounds. And again, I mentioned the educational opportunities, and really what it is more than anything is the ability to sleep. And I'd actually like to see this place in Cambodia. I forget which Wat it was at, a Wat being the Cambodian name for a temple. But was at this specific one, the center of Phnom Penh, and I like to go live there for, not a long time, but just a time to see how these people live. I think it's really just kind of like choose your place on the ground, or if you're lucky enough to get inside a building, choose your place within the building, roll out your sleeping mat, sleep, and get to live in the streets the next day, the hustle lifestyle on the streets. Let's see. What else? I'm saying what else a lot in this review, I guess, because I'm eating a pizza. Yeah, overall impressions. It was a good book. The big reveal is that he's a homosexual. That's revealed about 2/3 of the way through this. And there's a couple encounters that he has in the book that kind of involve homosexuality. Not necessarily some of them get pretty close to sexual encounters, but really sort of like he mentions that a monk that he met in one of these monasteries is very cut, very handsome, classically handsome, in that to become a monk he had to shave his head, but actually that made him much more masculinely sexualized. No offense, I hope I wouldn't understand that, but very masculinely sexualized by shaving his head and being really kind of this very sort of masculine figure, which is the opposite of what you would want, what the intent is with Buddhism. He also said that there was one time that he met somebody in a bar, and he turned out to be a gay male prostitute, and it wasn't clear right away. It just seemed like flirting, but eventually, by the time he got back to his hotel, it turned out to be, oh, this is my price. You're a very good man. I'll keep lowering it. Hold on your jacket. I want you. That's so strange. But the doorman at his door eventually kicked him out, even though they were agape, because they might have known that he was a homosexual, but they didn't know that he was, they're really fishing, as it were, for fresh meat. I don't know if that's the correct terminology or not, but it was just kind of funny. He visits, Angkor Wat. He says it's really sort of disembodied from the rest of Cambodia, and the fact that a good number of people go there, but it's becoming so overcrowded. The specific thing that he mentioned, and he didn't go into this too much in detail, but he said, it's kind of hard to understand the beauty of Angkor Wat. He went there, for the sunrising ceremony, which is traditional across religious places all across East Asia. Well, it's kind of hard when the sun comes up and you're trying to look at Angkor Wat, but there's a giant German guy trying to get the exact picture, right in your way. It kind of ruins your occasion a little bit. He also kind of mentioned that he had a life near-death experience there, which he kind of fell down some steps, and that was actually much more religiously holy. This is when he went there about 10 years ago, or a number of years ago compared to today. And that was the most religious thing at Angkor Wat. Now it's just kind of like, whatever. I mentioned in Phnom Penh. It's the last thing I'm going to say. I should have mentioned this earlier to make the flow of it go better, but North Korea actually has a presence in Phnom Penh. They're one of the few countries that has an embassy there. Well, in addition to having an embassy, they also have a specifically North Korean restaurant with North Korean women and North Korean waitresses, all that kind of thing. And he felt like he was being a little bit of a espionage spy going in and enjoying the restaurant, but it turns out that it was just sort of like they kind of got mad at the fact that one of his friends had a camera and kept taking pictures, but outside of that, it was just a sort of PR stunt. I'm sure the North Korean waitresses that worked there were well vetted ahead of time to make sure that, you're not going to gain any new information. It's just going to be a whitewashed version of whatever we want North Korea to be. So, with that, good book. This review's gone on long enough. Very easy read. I read this super quick. It's relatable. It's not too esoteric. It talks a little bit about Buddhism, kind of introduces those facts without going in too much into like the unknowns of it, if you will. So yeah, good look. Check it out. Check my more reviews out. I'm probably going to read Destination Saigon pretty soon, so you'll be seeing a review for that pretty soon too, I think. Anyway, that's the other book written by the author Walter Mason. The name of the book, Destination Cambodia, Adventures in the Kingdom by Walter Mason. All right, see you guys. I'm going to enjoy the rest of this pizza.